In this video, I'm going to show you how to make walls automatically turn invisible when they block the camera's view of the player, and then become visible again once they're no longer in the way. This works with any number of walls between the character and the camera. All of this as a 20 subs special. Thank you so much for your continued support, guys. Let's get started. Okay guys, first of all, let's create a custom trace channel for our project. Let's go to project settings, then to the collision tab. And then let's add a new trace channel, in this case called invisible meshes. Let's leave the default response in black and close this tab. Now let's create a new blueprint class, in this case our level actor. It will be called BP_invisible wall. Open it to add some features. The first one would be a static mesh. Let's set the default static mesh to the tile we've been using in the last few tutorials. Adjust the rotations to make it vertical. Let's save and compile. Still inside in the static mesh, let's go to the collision tab. Let's make the collision presets custom so we can modify the collision response of the trace channel we just created to overlap, so the line trace can get multiple hits instead of blocking just the first hit. Last but not least, let's create a boolean flag to avoid unnecessary processing. Let's call it is visible. Compile and set it to true. Now, after we finish with the setting of the wall, we need to create the invisible material. So let's create a new material called m_master. Let's open it up. Let's change the blend mode to translucent. Add a new vector parameter to set the respective color. Let's call it the base color and drag the output to the base color. Let's set it to a white. This is completely optional, of course. Let's add now a scalar value called opacity. Let's set the default value to 1. Drag the output to opacity, apply and save. And let's create a new material instance of this master material to modify these parameters. Let's call it _instance. Set both parameters to true and set opacity to 0 to make it completely invisible. After we finish with the materials, let's create the actual function inside the character blueprint. Before that, let's increase the camera boom length to 80 so the character is positioned a little further from the camera. And deactivate do collision test so the camera doesn't clip through geometry. To make the function work, let's create a couple of arrays. The first one, let's call it the current hits with a value of BP_invisible wall object reference. Set it to an array. Let's duplicate. Let's call this second one the previous hits to periodically compare if the current hits match the previous hits or not. Encode the behavior of each case. Now it's time to create a custom event called update wall visibility that will basically compare the two arrays and swap materials depending on the state. The first thing we need to do is to drag current hits to clear the array. So we will start the function with an empty array. Next, let's search for multi-line trace by channel. We will need to obtain all the hits between the camera and the player. So for the start position, let's get the world location of the follow camera, get world location, and connect it to the start pin. Then to obtain the end, let's get the forward vector of the same camera and multiply by a float. In this case, the length of camera boom, that is 800. This result will be summed with the world location of the same camera and connected to the end pin. Let's now select the trace channel we created recently. That will be the invisible meshes. As we set the collision settings of this trace channel in overlay, it won't return any blocking hit. So we need to play with the length of the out hits to separate the cases. In this case, if this length is different to 0, there will be a different behavior. I came up with this new method because it is useless to try with this pin of blocking hit, as the line trace doesn't block anything, just overlaps the instances of this actor we previously created, that is invisible wall. Let's change the draw debug type to for duration, in this case 0.1 seconds, to see each overlapping hit periodically. Drag the out hits pin to a for each loop node and connect it to true. Let's break the content of the current array node. Let's look for hit actor. Let's make a cast to our previously created wall, BP invisible wall, and connect to the loop body pin. Now drag the BP invisible wall reference pin to a contains node to check if current hits contains the current value. Add a branch node, connect it to the cast. Then grab this current element, and if it's not contained in the current hits, let's add it to the array. This current step will help us to prevent any unnecessary operations, such as adding the same element over and over. In the next block, we need to check each of the elements of the previous hits array. In this case, with a for each loop, let's drag also the previous hits to the array pin. Drag the current array element to obtain the contains node. Oh, not this one. The contains array node to verify if it is contained inside current hits, connected to an AND module alongside the current state of the flag is visible from the blueprint invisible wall. This system will also prevent from unnecessary processing, such as changing the material of the mesh each time the function is called, no matter it is already invisible. Anyway, let's put the output of AND in the condition of a new branch connected to the loop. Now let's find the reference of the static mesh in the invisible wall blueprint, and from there let's find the node set material and connect it to the false pin of this branch. Let's set the material to the default world grid, and let's set our flag is visible to true. This part of the code basically turns visible the actors that are not overlapping from the camera to the player. Next, put another for loop right after the previous one to iterate with the current hits array. From the current element, let's find the flag is visible and connect it to the condition of a branch, which is connected to the loop body. Next, from the current element, obtain the static mesh reference and find the set material node and connect it to the true pin of the branch. Set the material input with the invisible instance we previously created and set the flag is visible to false. This section of the code makes any actor that overlaps between the camera and the player turn invisible. Let's compile and save. And finally, let's transfer the content from the current hits to the previous hits for the code to be ready for the next periodically comparison. Now, if the length of out hits is equal to 0, that means there is no hit and no actor should be invisible. So that's why we pass directly from the false pin to the second block, which makes every actor visible. To conclude with this tutorial, we need to apply a timer somewhere. That will be in the event begin play. For that, you should put a sequence. In the one pin, let's search for set timer by event. And in the event input, let's create a custom event called event. And drag the update wall visibility event to this one. Let's set the timer to 0.1 seconds and activate the looping option. So let's try it. Okay guys, let's see. As you can see, whenever the character moves behind a wall that blocks the camera's view, the wall turns invisible. And when it's no longer between the character and the camera, it becomes visible again. This works no matter how many walls are there between the player and the camera. Like and subscribe for more.